Presidential response. What Mexico's leader is saying about the murder of 2 Catholic priests in the country. Equality in education. The 50th anniversary of a landmark law presents new questions about gender and athletics. Promoting families. How this week's World Meeting in Rome is proclaiming the vocation of family life online. And daily devotion. How one woman is bringing the rosary to children. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on this solemnity of the Nativity of John the Baptist. I'm Tracy Sabol. The 10th World Meeting of Families continues in Rome. The second day of activities opened this morning with Mass in English inside of St. Peter's Basilica, presided by Irish Cardinal Kevin Farrell. The day's program featured 2 conferences in Paul VI Hall, where families shared their experiences, especially on marriage and the value of fatherhood and motherhood. The day closed with a classical music concert at St. John Lateran Basilica. Joining us now from Rome is Ursula Marua, Director of Digital Strategy and Social Media for EWTN News. Ursula, great to see you. I'm curious, how is the faithful reacting on social media in the first few days of the Meeting of Families, and what's trending?
Hi, Tracy. Well, it's really amazing to see the reaction of our own audience, as well as people from all over the world who are unable to come here to Rome and participate on this World Meeting of Families. But so far, to give you an idea, over 1 million people have interacted with any of our content that we have been delivering since the beginning of this meeting. It's amazing to see how people react and how people engage with Pope Francis' reflections on the beauty of family, on the beauty of marriage. I mean, this universal call to live on holiness, especially for the families today in this moment of the history, which is so troubled and so complicated for us. Pope Francis is giving us, all of us, a lot of hope with his words, a lot of insights that we all really need to consider in our daily life, and to see that coming from people all over the world trying to get a little bit of what's going on here, it's really amazing. I mean, to be totally honest, I didn't expect this huge interest from people regarding this main event for us.
What an incredible response, Ursula. Like you mentioned, people from all over the world, over 1 million people reacting on social media. And of course, there are people from all over the world in Rome right now for the global gathering. What's been your experience so far?
Well, my experience so far, it's been really good. I mean, for us, especially for the EWTN team working here in Rome, it's been a big opportunity to gather. I mean, we've been working, most of us, remotely from different parts of the world. As you may know, we have been offering this coverage in 4 different languages. So you have here people from Latin America, from Spain, from different parts of Europe, even from Asia, So it's been a big blessing for all of us to be able to connect with our own team members, as well as to see the real impact that our work can have in the church. We are here serving passionately the Catholic Church that we all love and that we really want to serve with our own work. And just walking around Rome, you can see families from different parts of the world. Obviously, this is the World Meeting of Families, but also you can see that big expectations from people of joining together again, being able to come to Rome again after 2 years of a pandemic that have affected all of us in different ways. So it's really nice to be here. It's beautiful. It gives us hope, and it renews ourselves in our mission and in our commitment to serve the Catholic Church.
Yeah, and this beautiful event, I know, ends on Sunday. Ursula, if someone at home wants to follow the meetings online, how can they do so?
There are several ways, and that's a great question, Tracy. I would invite all of you following this event from your home to visit not only our main EWTN.com webpage, but also all our social media channels. We are broadcasting all the events through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Even we are posting, some excerpts on Instagram and everywhere. You can just look for EWTN everywhere and you'll find us. And if you don't have time maybe to watch all the videos and all the conferences and so on, you can go to catholicnewsagency.com, for instance, and read what the Pope has been saying. And we are going to keep doing this until Sunday. And really, please join us. We are here serving you through social media.
Well, Ursula, thank you so much. I know that you're so busy there right now, so thank you for taking the time to speak with us. And back here in the United States, the Biden administration announces new and controversial changes to Title IX. The 1972 law forbids discrimination based on sex in education programs that receive federal dollars. White House correspondent Owen Jensen joins us now with more.
Tracy, President Joe Biden, in a statement today, said Title IX, written 50 years ago, transformed our nation. And now a new proposal by his administration to change it. And this is just the start. President Joe Biden's Department of Education releases a statement proposing changes to Title IX and inviting public comment, writing in part, the proposed regulations will advance Title IX's goal of ensuring that no person experiences sex discrimination, sex-based harassment, or sexual violence in education. Among the proposals, protect LGBTQI+ students from discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics. Meanwhile, as the nation awaits the Dobbs decision that could overturn Roe v. Wade, Vice President Kamala Harris meets with some top state legal officials.
And so I've asked these attorneys general to meet with us, knowing that they have a pivotal role to play in defending women's reproductive freedom and their rights to make decisions about their own bodies.
And earlier today at the White House, President Joe Biden welcomes the Wounded Warrior Project's annual soldier ride to the South Lawn. Danielle Green from Chicago was badly wounded in Baghdad, Iraq. She says the Wounded Warrior Project helped her get better.
They've had my back for 18 years and counting, and now I'm here.
You're the best America has to offer. That's not hyperbole. You're the best America has to offer. You embody the soul and the spirit of the nation. As I like to say, you're the very spine of America.
Now, back to Title IX, how students playing sports would be impacted, and that's, of course, a huge concern, remains to be seen. But in the past, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has stated, and I'll quote here, read it here for you, gender ideology harms individuals and societies by sowing confusion and self-doubt. The state itself has a compelling interest, therefore, in maintaining policies that uphold the scientific fact of human biology. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
And coming up later in the newscast, a closer look at the proposed changes to Title IX with Sarah Parshall-Perry of the Heritage Foundation. Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America is launching a digital ad campaign. The $2 million initiative seeks to highlight the humanity of unborn children. It will air in 8 states, all of which support bans on abortion. The pro-life group is set to spend nearly $80 million to protect life, leading to the midterm elections this fall. More than a dozen Senate Republicans joined a largely Democrat effort to advance a gun control bill a mere 2 hours after the text of the bill circulated. The measure is likely to pass later this week. Supporters say its provisions are common sense, but there is some loud opposition on Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more on that. Eric?
Well, good evening to you, Tracy. You know, debate continues on the Senate floor with this gun reform bill. A final vote will likely take place either tonight or tomorrow. Meanwhile, members of the Second Amendment House caucus are speaking out. They say that this gun reform bill will actually make Americans more reliant on the government for their safety. Their biggest issue are red flag laws. These are the laws that actually prevent Americans from being able to own a gun as a result of safety concerns. Now, caucus members say that these new laws could infringe on the rights of law-abiding citizens.
Americans have the right to due process. Americans have the right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed These red flag laws are unconstitutional.
House members gave a variety of scenarios in which legal and law-abiding gun owners could lose their weapons, such as a complaint to police from an angry neighbor or from a vindictive ex-spouse or partner.
This bill, by funding red flag laws which diminish due process available for the loss of rights to bear arms, keep and bear arms, will result in some Americans losing their fundamental right without full due process.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene claims the bill is caving into the Biden administration and called out Senate Republicans who voted for it. She adds the details inside the bill favor government control, with $100 million going to the FBI.
I don't think they'll be pursuing the people protesting and harassing Supreme Court justices. Or what about the domestic terrorists that are attacking pregnancy centers across America? I don't think the FBI will care about that. No, they're going to be going after legal gun owners' weapons.
Second Amendment caucus members say the bill doesn't address the real cause of these mass shootings.
They never grapple with the problem. The problem is, let's face it, 60 years of destruction of American culture by the liberal project.
It's a hard issue in America. And when you tell young people, and we protest the right to kill a baby in a mother's womb and then sell the body parts and then go wonder why there's no value in life in young America, it's because we're teaching that to our children.
Members of the Second Amendment caucus do have the backing of House leadership. Both Kevin McCarthy and Whip Steve Scalise say that they are with them. Now, the group is also speaking out against a Democratic bill that would put a 1,000% tax on any semi-automatic gun or ammunition. That would make it nearly impossible for anyone to be able to afford a gun. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
The president of Mexico is condemning the murder of 2 Jesuit priests earlier this week.
Estos religiosos fueron asesinados.
The country's leader says a suspect has been identified. The priests were shot and killed while trying to protect another man from an armed individual. The priests were 79 and 80 years old and were known for their social work and as advocates for education for the needy. New images are emerging from the earthquake in eastern Afghanistan that killed more than 1,000 people earlier this week. The 6.1 magnitude quake also injured an estimated 1,500 others. Officials warn the death toll will rise as the search for survivors continues. It was the country's deadliest quake in 2 decades. Historic floods are sweeping through southern China. Rescuers are evacuating residents trapped by rising water. An estimated 500,000 people are now displaced. One city reports water levels cresting more than 33 feet above flood stage. That is the highest in decades. Coming up, Title IX. How the Biden administration is linking a transgender agenda to a landmark law. As we reported earlier, today is the 50th anniversary of Title IX, landmark legislation passed back in 1972 that prohibited sex discrimination in any education program or activity that received federal funds. But now the Biden administration is proposing sweeping changes that some say could pose a threat to women's sports and much more. Joining us now is Sarah Parshall-Perry, Senior Legal Fellow at the Edwin Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation. Sarah, welcome back. Great to see you again. Let's talk more about these changes to Title IX that the Department of Education is proposing. How much of an impact do you think this will have?
Significant. In fact, there will be very few educational institutions in the country, either K through 12 or in the context of higher education, that won't be affected, as so many of them accept federal funding. And $1 is sufficient to attach anti-discrimination law through the Department of Education. All schools have to certify compliance with their particular anti-discrimination laws in order to receive their piece of the federal pie. So the biggest change that we've seen is going to have a significant impact, and that's expanding the definition of discrimination based on sex to include discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics.
Sarah, let me ask you this. If this is enacted, what do you think will happen to women's sports? What will it look like?
Well, we've seen the department say they will engage in separate rulemaking on the sports issue, most likely because that issue does not poll well for the Democrats at all. It's been exceptionally divisive. We've seen Leah Thomas put a very fine point on it in her winning of the women's 500-meter freestyle NCAA championship. So it hasn't polled well. Traditionally, they say they will engage in new rulemaking, but what the language does include, and not one but two spaces, is language that says discrimination that happens on athletic fields or within the context of athletics is also subject to those provisions. So by expanding the definition of sex to include gender identity and pulling in athletic competition, they've already changed the rule whether or not they engage in future rulemaking. It will be catastrophic for women's sports.
And what would happen, say, if a private school, faith-based or otherwise, decided not to abide to these changes?
So Title IX carries by statute a religious exemption. So that is good news, and that it's impossible to change a fundamental federal civil rights law without engaging in rulemaking. There seems at this point to be little to nothing in the new proposed rule about religious exemptions. That is good news for private parochial schools, but many parochial schools get federal funding, whether it's through reduced lunch programs or any other incentive, and that's enough to subject them to Title IX, regardless of whether or not they have a religious exemption. So it does present a pretty chilling picture of the future in education.
And Sarah, what else about these proposed changes do you think is really important for people to know about?
Well, significantly, it institutes sort of a heckler's veto, discrimination based on your unwillingness to adhere to gender identity could subject you to a Title IX sex discrimination complaint. We've seen this already happen in the state of Wisconsin. 3 8th grade boys have been named specifically in a Title IX complaint at the federal level. It also eliminates due process protections during campus investigations on sexual assault and sexual violence that were put in place to protect both the accused and the accuser. Those are eliminated, and it includes conduct that transpires not only off campus, but also after an individual has left the school. So it expands the scope and expands the definition of sex discrimination in a very unfortunate and impactful way.
And Sarah, before I let you go, there's something else I want to touch on. The Supreme Court, as you know, issued a number of rulings today, including one involving concealed carry permits out of the state of New York. I want to get your thoughts on that opinion and also what you think it signals for Second Amendment rights.
Well, it was a tremendous opinion. Justice Thomas wrote the majority with the 3 liberals in what I anticipated to be their particular fiery dissents, but he indicated specifically that these are cases in which we ought not to take constitutional rights lightly, that New York's concealed carry special exception for showing a special and above average reason to be able to receive a concealed carry permit was prohibitive. It was restrictive of a constitutional right guaranteed and enumerated. It is good things not only for Second Amendment advocates, for lawful handgun owners, but also for what we might see in terms of the state of the court for the next few opinions and make sure that constitutional rights are not infringed.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. Great to get your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, Children's Rosary. How a Connecticut family deepens its devotion and its mission at the World Meeting of Families. The Knights of Columbus is announcing a new initiative to help mothers and children. The Aid and Support After Pregnancy, or ASAP program, will bolster existing support for pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes. The goal is to raise at least $5 million over the next year. The Knights of Columbus is a sponsor of EWTN News Nightly. Well, among the many attending the World Meeting of Families in Rome is a family from Connecticut. Blythe Kaufman is the founder of the Children's Rosary, an international prayer group movement for children. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser had the opportunity to interview Blythe and her son.
We're here at St. Peter's Square at the World Meeting of Families, and with me are Asher and Blythe Kaufman from the Children's Rosary. Thank you for being with us today. And what brought you to Rome?
Well, we're here for the World Meeting of Families and also just to experience the beauty and blessed experiences you find when you come to Rome.
And tell us a little bit about what is the Children's Rosary and how is it praying here in Rome during such a big event?
Well, so first of all, the Children's Rosary is a prayer group movement for children where the children meet in parishes, schools, and orphanages really around the world. We're worldwide to pray the Rosary. They meet either monthly or weekly, sometimes even daily, depending where they are or what the devotion is. But in terms of what it's like being here in Rome, it's been really spectacular. I mean, obviously this is the seat of the church, and it's been amazing to be in this really history-laden and just this city full of spirituality. It's been a really great experience.
So there are families from more than 120 countries coming together here in Rome as delegates, so to say. The Children's Rosary is in more than 30 countries, I understand. What about this internationally? What can we internationality? What can we learn from each other?
Well, I think this is really a hive for the church. I mean, people are coming from all over the world with varied experiences. Our charism is very simple in its mission, which is to help children to grow in holiness through prayer, which I think resonates with people from all different walks of life, which is why we're here. We want to make those fantastic collaborations and connections so that we can draw children together and really unite the church in prayer.
The Rosary, does it ever get boring for you?
Well, I mean, look, obviously it's easy to get distracted during anything, but I think the Rosary is a really special prayer, and it really brings a lot of grace, a lot of blessings. I think certainly through a lot of apparitions and encyclicals, the Church has made it clear that the Rosary is an important important prayer through which to connect with God. And so I think maybe the Rosary, maybe through the course of praying the Rosary, you might get a little bit distracted. But the important thing is setting aside that time for God, making that effort to connect with God, and really trying to connect with God that way. I think that's what's really the important thing.
And Blythe, you're here with your son Asher, but also with 2 other kids and your husband. Your expectations for the World Meeting of Families?
I think we've always enjoyed, this is our 3rd World Meeting of Families, and we've always gone in as a family, and every time they announce the new location, my husband and I look at each other and we're ready for the next place.
So you're praying with your own children in the family, the Rosary. You motivate other families around the world really to pray the Rosary. Why is it important for families, do you think, to pray together?
Well, this is a time, I mean, families are so busy these days, and this is a time when you can come together. We find a lot of grace in our family when we pray for each other and set aside that time to come, and there's a peace that is also present when you pray the Rosary. We've seen this in our prayer groups in the Children's Rosary repeatedly in schools or in outposts such as in Kenya from pastors. So as any parent knows, peace is always being challenged. And so for a parent to have that grace and the backup of our Blessed Mother and our Lord helping us raise these children in holiness, there's nothing like it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us here. The Children's Rosary also present at the World Meeting of Families. For EWTN News Nightly, Andreas Tannhauser.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.